Hey, Stephen, how you doing? All right, so I've got your layout up, but I kind of want to address your writing first. So here's my first iteration. I wasn't sure how much to focus on tracking and kerning there was in this assignment, but I tried to play with different weights and points. And that's a really great question, and I can answer that pretty succinctly. And I can probably speak for any class that you take when I answer when I address this issue. And the answer really here, Stephen, is that as a student, I think it makes a lot of sense to employ what you have learned in any given week to uh, subsequent weeks. So, whatever you, in any class you have, whatever you're working on in week three should employ what you've learned during week one and week two. So in this particular case, yes, absolutely you want to pay attention to letting, kerning, and word spacing without question. And that goes from now until the end of the class. And it's a really relevant point, Stephen, because a lot of students, honestly, it's crazy. Like a lot of students will just completely forget what they learned in letter spacing and kerning by week four. So we finish our kerning exercises in week two with the trial by fire, right? But then we get to week four, and students just goes like all of a sudden they forgot about kerning. So yes, absolutely employ whatever you've learned moving forward. And I think it's safe to say that that's relevant in any class you take, not just this class. So that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. I've got your work up right here. Let's go ahead and take a look. So basically what we have is the general rules are 5 by 5 inch. Your setup is great right here. That's fantastic. No concerns at all there. However, 1 inch, it's a 1 inch between all four spaces, right? So 1 inch between all four squares. Right now, this distance right here is greater than this distance. So I would check this, your layout. Definitely looks like there's more space between the upper, between the top two and the bottom two than there is between the left two and the right two. So definitely want to make those spaces consistent, as it does indicate that there's 1 inch of space between all four little mini compositions here. Okay, image only in the fourth, that's great. Bleeding two spaces, black and white shades of gray, excellent, excellent. Now, for the first design, no contrast in size or weight, just based on grouping, and that's great. So right now, it's easy to see we've got two basic groups here. The 71 Plymouth Barracuda, and then all of the features involved. And that's good. And I would say even maybe push this hierarchy a little bit more just by increasing that space just a little bit, so it doesn't appear like maybe it's just a mistake I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, as a designer, be very, very deliberate in your decisions. Right now, this is so close to this, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you don't want the viewer to think that this is a mistake. So I would say increase that space just a little bit. Other than that, that's great. I'm a little concerned here about this 490 LBF, and then you have a bullet, and then FT. Then you have 664 cap N, bullet, and then M. I don't know what those are because I'm not a gearhead, so I don't know what that means. I don't know much about cars at all. I really don't, but this just seems really unusual as far as that configuration goes. You might want to check how the manuals define that, but I would say bullet is probably typographically incorrect. So definitely want to check up on that. Yeah, I don't know what that M, N, then a bullet, and then M. I have no idea what that means, but that is really, really confusing. And I would go ahead and say, even not knowing anything about cars, I would say that is probably typographically incorrect. Okay, so good hierarchy and alignment here, and spacing as well. Good job. All right, second iteration I think is really fantastic. Now, one thing I think that you're slipping on as we move through the compositions is alignment. And it seems like in each one of these, you just kind of forget a little bit more about the importance of alignment. Let me just describe what I mean here. So in the second design here, you're introducing one new size, one new weight. Okay, so there's your new size, there's your new weight. That's great, right? So we've got further hierarchy established. But we've established further hierarchy, but we've kind of sacrificed any kind of alignment here. And it's really, really easy to fix. What I would recommend doing is Now this is almost so close to being in alignment that right now this CUDA is almost in alignment with Barracuda up top. You could take that, slide it over a little bit and align. Use this as your aligning point. So you got CUDA, and not the quote, but the actual C aligned with the B and Barracuda, and then follow that line down there. So there's your guideline right there that would be used. Depending on how your grid is established, you may have to reconfigure this based on your grid. But what I'm just using this example for alignment. So I'm going to use this as a straight edge. If I bring this over here, you can see there's Barracuda. So you bring the C in alignment with the B, and then take this whole column right here and put it in alignment. And like magic, you're going to see this composition improve tremendously simply by that following that lead line. You're simply creating alignment. Try it. It's going to work out beautifully, I promise you. Let's go to the third iteration. And in the third iteration, we have multiple contrasts in weight and scale. And I think you've done a good job here as well. Again, but we're looking at this kind of odd alignment. So what I would recommend here is this, and you have introduced a italic here, an oblique, and that's great. But right now it doesn't make, well, Hemi-CUDA BS model. Yeah, I guess that does make sense. But I think this is superseding this in terms of hierarchy. So this, not only is it bold, but it's also italic, and it seems to be a little bigger than this. So the hierarchy, the viewer has no choice but to jump right here first, maybe even missing this altogether. So what we want to do is circumvent that issue by decreasing the size of a Hemi-CUDA BS model. Just decrease the size a little bit so 71 Plymouth Barracuda is bigger. Then bring this over and just align it right there. Okay, there could be and this all again depends on the grid you're using, but I'm just using that alignment point as an example. So you align that right there, then follow that line down and go ahead and pull both of these in alignment too. Now, this kind of situation right here, these diagonals, they are creating phantom diagonal lines that are a little bit distracting. This phantom line right here goes straight through it. It's reinforced right here, so it's a leading. It's a phantom leading line that's basically leading the viewer off the page, and you don't want to do that. So I would say let's forget those phantom diagonals and start to try to establish a vertical. Okay, so that's an alignment there. Then bring this over and use that as your alignment point, third generation. And then this is good. This is good right here. So that's going to be decreased, but still bigger than this. Then this is going to be bigger than this. And then the bottom is great. That's good. But again, in design, something should always align with something else. So depending on how this is, you could even use the Barracuda right there, that B. And again, let me grab my trusty straight edge, bring that right there. And you can see you are basically almost in alignment, but not quite. So if we bring that right there to that vertical stem of the cap B, and we bring that to the alignment point, then you can pull this over and make sure that's aligned. Okay, and then the same thing here, try to align that with something. Theoretically, you could even bring these right down here. And then we got these strange bullets here again, so I'm still definitely a little concerned about that. Okay, fourth iteration, multiple contrasts and weight. So this is pretty good. I think this is pretty good. So 71 Plymouth Barracuda, Hemi-CUDA BS. That's really nice right now. But I think right now it's a little unusual that the image is over the type right there. I would not do that. It's a great technique in some situations. Right here, I think it's impeding readability of that word. So I would move the card down a little bit. Third generation Chrysler E-body design. Okay. So what I would recommend here is that you've got this is left line again. You got to pull that over, get that in alignment right. Even that's an oblique. This is an optical relationship. I think Hemi-CUDA BS is a little bit too large. I would reduce that a little bit. Just try to get that. Even though that's an oblique, it still seems like it's pushed over to the right a little bit. So let's get that in alignment. Third generation body. Now what you could do here is something really interesting. Again, pointing to alignment is just take this right over here and just align it right underneath here. So this is all left aligned right here. So you've got a beautiful left margin right there. And then that's fine, centered right there. But if we just pull that right over here and keep that in alignment, and that's going to create some wonderful negative space over here as well. You could even theoretically pull that over there and left align it here. So you have right align at the top, I'm sorry, left aligned at the top and right aligned down here. So that might even be a really super interesting way to go. Although it might pull too much weight over here in creating an imbalance in the composition. So, okay, so keep working. You're doing really good stuff. Keep alignment in mind. And one thing I do want to draw your attention to is page 101 in the textbook. And you guys, I believe, are using the 7th edition, but I have the 6th edition here, so I'm not positive if it's page 101. But you can see my binding is falling apart. That's how much I use this book. I want to keep it closed a little bit. I want to destroy that binding anymore. But this is page 101 right here. And again, you're using the 7th edition of the book, so I'm not real sure. But what it is, it's this, it's called Visual Hierarchy as the chapter. Visual hierarchy, and then the example is this modern Hispanic poetry. So you want to look at that, and there's 9 examples that are pertain to this assignment directly. So you want to be sure to take a look at those. And then also in the announcement, there's a wonderful little lecture here on establishing hierarchy. It starts right down here. Let's see, here's the announcement. Welcome to week 3. And we come down. About halfway down through the announcement, you have this study typographic hierarchy. Take a look at this. This is a wonderful little lecture, visual lecture, on how to create separations, alignments, and hierarchy based on what, Stephen? Based on contrasts. And that's how we establish hierarchy. Contrasts. Based on scale, weight, etc. Okay, so go through that. That's really fantastic. So I'd like you to go through both those resources before you resubmit. Well, I shouldn't say resubmit it, before you submit your version, your final version for this assignment. All right, fantastic job. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications, I'll be glad to provide. Any of the above if needed, just let me know. All right, fantastic job.